In today's episode of In the Cat Box, we'll be going over step by step how to install a mock magazine inside your VSR-10. So almost every single time I go out and play Airsoft, I usually get a comment about my mock magazine and my VSR-10. I've had a lot of people interested in the idea. I've had a few ask me how I've done it. So I've actually decided to make a video showing all of you as best as I can how I went along to install this mock magazine inside of my VSR-10. So for starters, we first want to take apart the gun and get down to just the base stock. It's fairly easy to take it apart. You've got the screw here, you've got the screw up here, as well as the Phillips head screw back here that holds the barrel and bolt assembly onto the stock body. We want to take these screws out, as well as take off any other unnecessary pieces to the stock and get down to just the base stock. So here we have it. We have just the base stock of the VSR-10. Now your guys's will not have the magazine obviously installed yet, and you most likely will not have the trigger guard here as well. I'll get to why the trigger guard as well as the magazine are currently in it and remain inside the stock as one piece in a bit. So you can go ahead and set all of your other parts, pieces, the screws that hold together the stock to the barrel off to the side. You will not need this until you go ahead and put the gun all the way back together. Now from here, we'll go over the materials that you need to mount your magazine onto your VSR-10. Now first, you're going to need a M14 AEG, preferably mid-cap metal magazine. I say preferably mid-cap just because you won't have that really awkward slit in the bottom of the magazine for where the little turn wheel is for the high cap magazines. Metal obviously because it's a lot more durable and a lot more realistic. As far as tools, you're going to need a variety of them. So of course you're going to want iPro. It's very important for all of your tech savvy needs. Then probably the most important tool you'll be using is a Dremel. Now when I use the Dremel, I went ahead and used some of these really tough Dremel blades. This is to cut through the plastic of the stock as well as the metal of the magazine. I also used a sanding type wheel to sand off those edges once you create your port on the bottom of your stock. And I also used a little Dremel head, I guess you could call it, just to tear away at some of that material while inside the stock, just to get through it a little bit quicker. Of course, you're going to need an Allen key that fits to the screw on the bottom of the magazine. You're going to get the entire, I guess, the BB holding section of the magazine, if you understand what I'm calling, usually the plastic area and the inside of the mag with the spring and all of that holds the BBs. That you're going to completely toss out. You're not going to be using that, not going to be cutting into that. So you're going to take that screw out, take that piece out, and go from there. And finally, you'll just need an assortment of pliers. You got some needle nose, you got some larger ones, just assortment of them for the needs that you'll be using them for later on in the video. So for starters, the M14 magazines are a little longer than usually preferred. Now, unless you really want the magazine sticking out a lot, you can leave it at its usual height, but I took off a little bit off the top, probably about an inch or so. This is going to vary, obviously, depending on how long you want it, but what you're really shooting for is the length of the magazine that is still that is up inside of the actual body, to not interfere with the barrel and bolt unit once you put it in. You don't want it to be keeping it from mounting correctly. Now you'll be using the Dremel to take off the top basically of that magazine. From there, you're going to want to make some incisions on the magazine to prepare for installing it. Now, I have a little example here towards my right of exactly how this looks, but to explain it as best as I can is you're going to cut it so that you have 4 flaps. You're going to have one on each side of the magazine as well as one on the front and the back of the magazine. Now, you're going to leave these corner posts that you can see there because these are going to help maintain the really snug fit and the stability of the magazine. So it's important to leave those corner posts there, but make sure that you cut those flaps down. Now, these flaps don't really need to be cut down too big. Mine are probably about a little over ½ an inch. You can actually see the front and rear flap right here and right here, just to kind of see how long those flaps are. We'll get to why those ones are outside of the gun and while the side ones are inside of the gun here in a bit. So from here, we have to create a basically a magazine port slot, I guess you can call it, in the body itself. Now this is when you get the Dremel, and you can go ahead and leave the blade on still, the disc, or go ahead and use maybe a better head of your own or any other cutting way that you may have available to you. And you're going to want to draw out, pencil, something like that, onto the bottom of the body where you want the magazine to be. Now I put mine fairly close to the trigger guard here. As you can see, it's actually going over the trigger guard. If you go ahead and look on the inside there, hopefully you can see the magazine is actually around the front end of the trigger guard. So I have it just about as close as you can get to the trigger guard. So go ahead and draw out that onto your body, grab your Dremel, and slowly start taking away material. I would say draw it a little smaller than the actual magazine size is, and then from there slowly take it off until you finally get to the right size to fit that magazine in there and really reduce any wobble. Now, your biggest goal is to keep this from coming out. That's where it really gets important when installing your magazine. And this is how I kept mine from coming out. So you're going to have a body, and now you're going to have your slot cut out of your body. You have your magazine with the flaps all cut out. Now you're not going to want to be bending into these flaps yet. Go ahead and leave the magazine just how it is, but have it prepped and ready to bend to the needs. Now what I did is I went ahead and actually installed the trigger guard right now. I put it into the gun, put exactly where it is, where it will be once you mount everything back together. Then you're going to get the magazine, and I guess you could either come in from the top down or from the bottom in, and you're going to push the magazine in. Now before doing this though, the front and the rear flaps you're going to want to bend completely down to the side of the gun, basically how you see it here. Now if you do it this way, you're going to want to come in from the bottom of the gun. So you're going to want to get the magazine and mount it as if you were loading the gun, basically. So make sure you have those flaps all the way down, you push it up into the gun. Now when you cut out your slot, you want to make sure that once these flaps are down, they're down to a point where it's actually wider than the slot, if that makes sense, where if you were to push up any more, the magazine will actually not push up any more into the gun because of these two flaps being there. Now this is the way that we're going to keep the magazine from being pushed too far up into the gun, being slammed in there, maybe interfering with your bolt assembly. Now once you have it inside of the gun, you still have those two flaps on the sides of your magazine. Now what you're going to do here, and this is when you want to start getting probably the needle nose pliers for this, you want to grab those side flaps and you want to bend them outwards. You're going to want to bend them outwards as far as you can until they're just about flush with the inside body of the rifle stock. Now what this is going to do is this is going to keep the magazine from being able to pull out. If you ever want to take this magazine out, you can easily just re-bin these. I say easily, it's kind of hard for me to do this. For me, I bent them pretty well so they wouldn't come out. But if you really tried hard enough, you could bend those back and you should be able to pull this magazine right back out. So now you have a magazine that should not come out. It should not go farther in. It's set, it's looking good. Now for the bottom base plate of the magazine, you will not be using that screw anymore since you do not have the BB feeding area, I guess you can call it. So all I did was I slid the plate back on and I really crimped down these little I guess you could say bracket type pieces down here on the bottom of the magazine. I crimped them down to hold this plate in place so that it would not come off. Now from there, you've got your magazine mounted. Now as you can see, I left my front and rear flaps on. I did this just in case if I want to change it in the future, but if you wanted to, you could trim these flaps either with a Dremel or with by some other means, just so that they're not out there in the open, just so you can't see it as much as you can see on mine. But make sure you leave enough of it up there so that it still keeps the magazine from going any further into the rifle. Now from here, I found that doing it this way, your trigger guard will not be able to be removed without removing the mag as well. So I guess in a sense that could be a con, but I tend to like it. Keeps it from being lost, and I like how it keeps it as one solid structure so that the barrel and the bolt unit can just go straight in. Okay guys, so now it is time to put back together the rifle. Now this is fairly similar to how it usually is, but just to show you just exactly how it works, we've got the trigger guard, the magazine installed, they're ready to go. So basically you've got your barrel, your scope, your bolt unit, all that kind of stuff. Mine's a little ugly up here from all the mesh. And all I do is I just go ahead and stick it into the back first and really make sure that that trigger is inside, I guess, the trigger hole, I guess, of the trigger guard. Make sure that you're not putting any unnecessary pressure or tension onto your trigger. Definitely want to break that, especially if you're spending money on some of those zero triggers. And then you're just going to want to slowly bring it down until it mounts to exactly where it needs to be. And there you have it. It's installed, it's ready to go. You just got to put in your screws. This will work just like how it usually does. You've got the screw in the front down here between the real mag well as well as your mock magazine, and your Phillips head screw back here, which will go through your trigger guard and into your bolt assembly. Now it's time to put all your goodies back together onto your gun, make it look nice and cute, and you're ready to go. Well guys, here it is, the full rifle put all the way back together, got the mock mag installed. I really hope your guys' turned out just as great as mine. Just a little final notes. Definitely remember to sight in your rifle again. Make sure it's accurate every time you take apart your gun for anything, whether it's something like this or actually getting into the internals of the rifle. It's a good idea to take a few shots out back, get that range back down and accuracy solid for the rifle again. It's always a good idea for that. Thank you guys for watching this video. I really enjoyed making it. I plan on making a lot more tutorial videos like this in the future. My next one will most likely be how to create a zoom camera, how to mount it, how to put it together. So you guys are definitely not going to miss out on that one. If you guys missed out on the last episode of In the Cat Box when we go over my entire rifle, I have a link to that in the video. Thanks for watching guys. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and give me a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.